Oh, Canada. Yes, why do we have to know about the Canadian men's national team here on the channel? Has their team finally become relevant? And yes, they have. For a couple reasons, especially for us Americans. One, they're in the final round of the World Cup qualifying, so we will be facing them during that to our road to Qatar. Along with that, they are in our group stage for Gold Cup right now in July of this year, 2021. So why not learn about the Canadian men's national team, which they have a lot more than just Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David. So for that, I brought Josh from JJDTV, a great Dortmund fan channel, along with a Canadian men's national team channel as well. So guys, I put his link on the description. Go subscribe, check his channel if you want to stay up to date with Borussia Dortmund, with Giovanni Reina, and obviously the Canadian men's national team. So now that I've introduced our guest and he's going to be talking about Canadian men's national team, make sure you hit the like button if you like these types of content. We will be doing watch-alongs for the US men's national team during the entire Gold Cup competition. Josh might be along with us as well. So, if you haven't hit the like button right now, do it so, and let's roll the episode. All right, so we brought here today a very, very, very rude Canadian. Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't curse out here at the channel. Welcome, Josh.
Welcome. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Canadians are known for their short tempers, for swearing and causing a fuss. I will try to behave myself, but I'm excited to be here. Always fun collaborating with you, especially on our national teams.
Yeah, so as I introduced previously, Josh is Canadian, obviously. He does have a Dortmund channel. You guys can see it in the background. And today what we want to do here essentially is we are in the same group as Canada in Gold Cup that will be played very soon here in July, starting July 11th. And in that same group, we also have Martinique, and we also have, likely, it'll be Haiti. Will be the fourth team. Not confirmed. They still have playoff rounds to play. It'll be Haiti. So what we want to do, Joshua, today is learn a little bit about the Canadian men's national team. I know a lot of the Americans don't follow the Canadian. They all know Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David because he betrayed the United States. No, I'm joking. He didn't betray it. He's Canadian. Okay. But let's learn a little bit about the Canadian men's national team. Okay. So for starters, I want you to tell us a little bit about formations they play, players to watch out, along with Alphonso and Jonathan David and Kyle Larin that many MLS fans are familiar with. So what can you tell us about Canada?
Well, we're coached by John Herdman, which means that formation and tactics will be a bit of a weak suit for us, but looking at the formations he usually goes with, I'm pretty confident going forward, especially in a game against the States. Again, probably depending on the team that you guys line up, but we've been technically, I guess, lining up in the 3-5-2. He's played that for a while now. He's obviously isolating Alphonso Davies on the wings. He has at times tried a back four, a 4-3-3. It hasn't really went for him, and he's immediately just went back to the 3-5-2. So that's probably what you're expecting, and it kind of suits the top three players that you were just touching on, and I'll try to introduce some other players besides them. But Alphonso Davies in the 3-5-2 will play as a wingback. It's where you're going to have a little bit of his defensive awareness to his game, as well as obviously the overlapping runs, the pace he'll bring in, and it's his natural position with Kyle Larin and, of course, Jonathan David up front. They're both real natural number 9s. They play up in that two-man striker formation. Jonathan David likes to sit back a little bit just behind Larin to kind of hook up with David. Watching a couple of the games that I've been lucky to watch because I haven't been able to see my national team in a long time, it was pretty much David Davies. That's exactly how it went down. David obviously is very technically gifted. He was able to drop in, pick up the ball, and continuously looked over for an overlapping run, Davies, and it's really those three. But there are I'm going to mention two other players for you quickly that are kind of behind the scenes. And it's a center midfielder that's coming up in the Portuguese league, and that's Stefan Eustáquio. He's a very gifted, technically gifted player. He's really brought something to this midfield, especially with Atiba Hutchinson getting older, not being really available anymore, and he wasn't even available for the 2 games against Haiti. But he's a good player to watch out for. He's been linked to the likes of Napoli and Porto as well, so it kind of shows what his development is looking like. 24, and he will probably make a good move in the offseason, as well as our back line is definitely our weakest point of the team.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was going to talk about that because I watched Canada versus Suriname. I was at your channel with that, and I was watching it. And what I noticed from Canada is a team very heavily reliant on Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David performing, and very vulnerable on defense because Suriname did have some good opportunities in the first half, which if they converted, and obviously Suriname was most certainly more hyped than they should have been. And we saw that. Canada beat Suriname 4-0, guys, by the way. But I'll let you get back to the players, and I want you to touch bases also on Buchanan at one point for the
New England fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do two more. The other player I was going to talk about was Scott Kennedy. He's a player playing in the Bundesliga 2 right now. This is literally his first couple of caps he's ever had for Canada, playing the last 3 matches, and he's been a blessing for this back three. It's been a question marks about whether this back three can handle some of the likes of the bigger boys in CONCACAF. But Scott Kennedy has been just a very technically gifted. You can tell he plays at a little bit higher level than some of the other players in our back four or back five, depending on what it is, because he's just been relaxed. He's very good at passing, and he's had a couple awesome games, which is very rewarding to see from the Canadian perspective. And then touching on Buchanan, again, another player similar to Eustachio in terms of going to get linked to hopefully a couple big teams. He's been linked to Juventus. I'm not saying that these transfers will go down, but teams like Juventus are taking a look at him. I kind of put him similar to a Juan Cuadrado in kind of a bit of his prime, or later end of his prime, where he was able to play as a right mid and a right wing back and a right back, because that's exactly what Buchanan does. Very gifted going up and down the pitch, lightning speed. He's a very intelligent player, good crosser of the ball as well, and gives you that versatility. And we have a little bit of depth in the right back position with Alistair Johnson of Nashville, and of course Richie Larea of TFC. So Buchanan honestly right now isn't even a starter just because of those other 3 players, but is definitely someone who can come off the bench and bring some speed late in the game.
So yeah, Buchanan, that's something that I like about him. The reason I talk about him so much is I saw him play against Orlando in the playoffs last season. He played as a right back, and he held his own against Nani, which in MLS, it's a pretty big deal. And I've seen him also play as a winger the other day. And the other day, was it 3 weeks ago or so? He played as a left winger, and I was also impressed. So I was like, wow, this guy can play as a fullback and as a winger, and he's effective on both. So I think he'll eventually become a starter in Canada. And I always thought Canada played better, at least the team they currently have, on what I've seen. And obviously, I'm no expert in Canada, so I could be full of crap on there. But I always saw this team as a 4-4-2 team, the players you have. But the past few games, it seems like you guys are going with wingers. I saw that you guys went with a 3-4-3 against Haiti. That's what it was?
So not technically. I mean, some of the lineups that were getting popped up everywhere were basically referring to that. But we did play a 4-4-2 in our first couple competitive matches. That's where we saw Alphonso Davies as a left mid. Atakubi was playing at left back because he's a solid left back as well. We can give you that option of Davies going forward. But playing against Haiti, it was a 3-5-2. So they had 2 wing backs, which were Davies and Laren, Davies and Larea, and then Alistair Johnson played an outside center back with Henry and Kennedy as the 2 other center backs. And then the midfield 3 was Mark Anthony Kaye, Jonathan Osorio, and Stefan Eustachio, with the 2 strikers being Jonathan David and Kyle Laren. The formations that they were showing had Richie Larea up at left wing or Jonathan Osorio. They were going all over the place. That's not how they played in game. It was a 3-5-2. It's a formation that John Herdman I think is the most comfortable with. He's played. That's the most formation he's played with Canada has been the 3-5-2. But he looked to maybe kind of go away from it going into that 4-4-2 just to give Alphonso Davies a little bit more freedom going forward. But I don't think the midfield was overly comfortable with just the 2, and he ended up reverting back to that 3-man midfield and three center backs.
And Josh, one more topic before we get to maybe a prediction of how the USA and Canada will match up in Gold Cup, probably around a month from now from this recording, from the time we're recording. I wanted to talk about one thing. You mentioned that Canada's weakest spot is definitely defense. There's no questions on that. So I heard you guys are going after a dual national. You want to talk about who he is? Want to talk about the possibility of getting him? And guys, by the way, just a heads up, this guy plays for a pretty big team.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting story. It's by far, I mean, these are rumors that are surfacing. Nothing is concrete, and I couldn't even give you a percentage of what could happen. But because of a new FIFA rule, it's allowing for a one-time switch. And Tomori, who's obviously from Chelsea, he just got sold to AC Milan, could represent Canada. He was born in Calgary if he wanted to. I mean, that would drastically change our back four. I think he'd be one of, if not, he'd be one of the top center backs in CONCACAF, I believe. And he would just be huge to a team that desperately needs center backs. But the reason I think that this is a potential that can happen is because, and I think Filippo would definitely agree with me here, is the fact that he got snubbed from the Euros that are going on right now. That's never good. But the biggest thing to me as well is he's going to be sold permanently to AC Milan, which means that he's not going to be playing in the Premier League anymore. And if you look at how the England team lines up, I mean, they're all about the Premier League. It's the holy grail of where you need to play. And a player like Jadon Sancho, for example, and I can just speak to this, better season than Phil Foden and Sterling, and he didn't even make the bench. So I think the fact that Tomori's going to play his trade now in Italy, he got snubbed from a huge tournament, and the fact that Canada's also co-hosting the World Cup in 2026 may have him an opportunity to represent the country he's born in.
Well, the English Federation does have to justify those overpriced players they have in the Premier League somehow. So they justify it by putting them in the national team, deserving or not. That's why you get a midfield with Phillips and Declan Rice, but that's off topic for that. Yeah, Tomori could be heading to Canada. Obviously, it's a rumor. It might never happen.
Yep.
If it happens, it's one heck of a game changer because it won't really resolve the defense. You're still going to have a weak link next to him. But at that point, you don't have two weak links. You have one solid defender. It's a difference maker. And he's young. I think he's 22 or 23. So that's for the long term as well with Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies. If you guys can eventually pull up another center back over the next 4 years for 2026, which I'm assuming it's also the main goal for Canada, just like the US and probably Mexico, even though L3 is finished at this point. But Josh, last but not least, let's quickly dive into Gold Cup. As I said, we're in the same group. We'll play each other in July. It's not the first round. The first round is July 11th. I think we play the third game actually. So it's probably somewhere around July 20th or 19th. The United States will bring a B squad, but we don't know what that B squad is going to look like. It could have players like Brendan Harrison, for example, that's doing very well in Europe. It could have Christian Roldan. It could have Jatsi Zardes. It could have Daryl Dike. It could have Matthew Hoppe. It could have Chris Richards from Bayern, Hoffenheim, or it could have Walker Zimmerman. We don't know. But knowing Greg Berhalter, I think it's going to be mostly MLS players. I think players like Zardes, Roldan, Sam Vines, Zimmerman will be there. By no means it's the worst team in CONCACAF, but is Canada expected to bring Alphonso Davies, Jonathan? Is Canada expected to bring everyone?
From what I've heard, there's obviously the big 60-man potential release of Gold Cup teams are coming out, so that doesn't really indicate much. But from what I'm understanding, what I'm talking to, that we're going to bring a full squad. This is a tournament, especially now knowing that the likes of US and Mexico are probably going to bring a B squad. I think the Canadians are looking at this as a big opportunity to kind of staple their way into the Gold Cup. Maybe convince Tomori to come on board and represent, but I'm fairly confident that it's going to be a very strong team and that they're going to go for the Gold Cup, because if Mexicans and the US bring their B team, Canada immediately just kind of rises a little bit in terms of who may be the favorites.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I thought two teams that I think of, because Mexico and the United States won't bring their A squads. That's confirmed. Mexico also has the Olympics, so Mexico might even bring their C squad. Yeah. And what comes to my mind is Canada and Jamaica, for example, because they also got all those dual nationals. Yeah. It could be the big opportunity for one of these countries to actually pull up the Gold Cup, because you don't have US and Mexico with their best. So yeah, I'm expecting Canada to bring their best as well, and the US not to bring their best. So we expect Canada to bring their A squad. I expect Jamaica to try to bring. If you guys can bring Tomori to Gold Cup, that's going to be impressive. So what I'll say is this: if Canada bring Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Kyle Larin, Tomori somehow as well, get him to commit right away. So I expect Canada and Jamaica to bring their A squad, especially because the United States and Mexico won't be strong, probably. And if Canada brings Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Kyle Larin, somehow Tomori, I think if they bring all those players, they actually will be better than the USMNT B squad. You know how soccer is, so yeah, the US could pull a win. But if all of that happens, I have to say Canada will probably top the group at least in regards to the USA. But I still need to see who Greg Berhalter is going to bring exactly. If we do end up bringing Chris Richards, Brendan Harrison, some guy, Yedlin maybe, these guys from Europe, I think we have an overall team that could definitely compete regardless of who Canada brings. So what's your prediction? Do you say the US tops the group or Canada?
I mean, given it's hard because I absolutely agree with you. I mean, the States have a lot of depth, and if you find a bunch of those young talents, like you were talking about Matthew Hoppe, could be an opportunity for him to break out and show the goal scoring streak that he has shown at the tail end of Schalke. But if they bring an all MLS squad, I am fairly confident that Canada would top the group. So I really do think it depends on what that US team looks like. But I'm gonna go out on a limb because, like you said, you know your manager, you know what he's about, and as a Canadian, let's hope he brings an all MLS squad, and that allows Canada to top the group. Because I think if they do bring an all MLS squad, this Canadian squad at least should top the group.
See, I told you guys he's rude.
He's rude. He's a rude guy.
But anyhow, so I agree with you. If we, depending on who Berhalter brings, I think Canada has a good chance. But then again, we need to see if all these guys from Canada will go as well. If Canada doesn't bring Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, I don't care if we have an MLS squad, they probably will beat Canada. It's just that I think Alphonso Davies is a little too much for MLS players. So, Josh, once again, thank you very much for being here. Everyone, I'm putting his link on the description. go check out his channel. If you're a Dortmund fan, Canadian, European soccer content, anything, Josh has got you much more than me. I don't cover Europe as much as Josh, especially Dortmund. Josh, thank you very much.
I appreciate it, man. Always enjoy coming on here, and looking forward to the next time.
Next time we'll be in the live watch along. We'll see you soon, Josh.